All right, good morning, everybody. I'd like to take this opportunity to declare annual plan long-term plan meeting APLTP 25/3 open and welcome all present, councillors and staff. Just remind you that this meeting is being live streamed and Zoom is available for those who want to watch. Let's commence with our karakia. Whakatau mai te wairua. Whakawhatia mai te hinanaro. Whakariti mai te tanana. Kia e ai ngā mahi. Ai. A call for apologies. Guessing we have an apology for Councillor Coxey's on leave of absence, is she? Okay. So in that case, she's here. Yeah. All right. There are no late items. Does anybody have a conflict of interest they wish to declare? In that case, we'll move on. There are no public excluded items. There is no public forum. There are no presentations. So we will move to our reports. And first up, we have item 10.1. deliberations on schedule and fees and charges, and we'll welcome Matt Leighton here to come and introduce this topic.
Kia ora tātou. This report presents the fees and charges and the feedback received through consultation on it. It was open for consultation between 20th of March, 20th of April. Had 7 submissions. 2 of those came and spoke to council. So this report presents the submissions received and the draft fees and charges for recommendation to the council to adopt, ready for the next financial year, subject to 4 items that are recommended for decisions from yourselves. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Matt. Do we have any questions for Matt before we move on to deliberations? Seems not. I will say before we move on, it's my plan to take this item, the recommendations, one by one. So I'll just leave it at that perhaps, and we'll move on to the first one. Do we have a mover and seconder? Well, I've been asked perhaps, so no, I don't want to do 1 and 2 together. So
may I move 1, 2 and 3 at least?
Well, you're making life difficult for me. No, I won't accept that. Can you move item number 1, please?
Second.
Thank you. Councillor Murray-Benz, did you wish to speak? Yeah, we've got a mover and a seconder. Mayor Denyer and Councillor Granger.
I think one of the things that was quite clear from Federated Farmers, they are suffering with the costs that keep increasing every time they blink. And I know that they would be really pleased to see the $300 rather than the $650.
Well, we're dealing with the first matter. If you could hold that to when we come down to number 4, please.
Oh, I'm not sure where I am then.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you wish to speak, Councillor Wickers?
Alrighty. It was me who requested to take them separately. I can't support even accepting the report because of the implications of the $14 million rating hole deficit relates to this, and that I'm going to request that the Tatico report be released to councillors, and that a full explanation of how the loan funding operating deficit of the regulatory services is presented to council. And until I get an understanding that, I don't have confidence to accept this report.
Right. Do we have any other speakers? Councillor Granger.
I didn't hear what the report Councillor Wickers wanted to.
The Tatico report.
Sorry, councillor Joyce.
Can we get some guidance from staff about this matter, please?
So Rachel, do you wish to comment? Probably not.
Mr. Chair, what I will say is that the Tatico report, as I understand it, and I'm mindful that Alison will no doubt be along soon, the Tatico report was largely a business process initiative undertaken by the resource consents team to understand where process efficiencies might be able to be readily progressed. Largely with a view to improving statutory timeframe compliance, and equally recommendations regarding the recording of time and cost against resource consent applications to get, certainly for the future, a more accurate picture around the cost attached to certain resource consent activity types. So in that regard, I'm curious as to Councillor Wicker's intention regarding the Tatico report as it relates to fees and charges.
Yes, if you'd like to respond, please.
So the things that you've mentioned obviously relate to the efficiency of the regulatory services area. So that's why I specifically asked for details in regard to the loan funding of the operational deficit. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm just saying for me to be comfortable to accept this report, I would like the rest of the team, because I probably won't be able to read it and make too much sense of it, but I'd like the rest of the team to be able to view that and have their opinion on it.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to, or did you want to comment on that, Mr. Mayor?
President, point of order. I mean, I'm confused as to how we can be debating something that no one seems to know about. You know, I've never even heard of this report. So how it's being brought up as an issue for us before we can approve receiving a report is I'm a bit confused on that.
Okay, thank you. I've got another query over here from Councillor Sol.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I think basically we ought to look at recommendation 1 is very simple. It's just receiving a report. Whether we accept it, its contents comes into question later on. It's just that it's what's presented to us,
yes,
and that we are accepting it to debate, and that I think is probably the point where further discussion would come.
I think that's a valid point. Councillor Murray Beans, did you have?
I think I'd like to support Councillor Sol in that when you look at the recommendation on 1, you could tie in easily what Councillor Wickers is asking for, that information, I wondered why in fact it was being brought up, but it can actually follow on from that number 1 recommendation, just information to be supplied to us as background information. I think so.
Yeah.
I can't see that there's a problem.
Thank you. I'll just get a comment again from Rachel before we go forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess it's just to the point that Mayor Denyer raised. The Tatico report is, as I mentioned earlier, is a report that was commissioned by management. So it firmly sits within the management frame to look at initiatives to improve our efficiency in the resource consenting space. So not all of regulatory. So in that regard, it is quite narrow just to resource consents. And I think that perhaps the other thing that I'll say is that councillors, in my view, should be able to take heart from the initiatives that have been deployed from the Tatico report, because you are seeing those financial implications coming through, particularly in your Q3 reporting that you received yesterday through Audit, Risk and Finance.
Thank you for that. So with that, I think we need to take, well, sorry, Murray.
Can we ask Rachel, for as much as she knows about this report, does it answer any questions about the 14 million?
That was certainly not the scope for the report at all, Councillor Granger. It was commissioned many, many months ago. In fact, I would suggest it was commissioned about a year ago. So the recommendations of that report, we're now just seeing that starting to bear fruit in terms of the efficiency of that activity. The primary, in terms of the nexus to this discussion, it really was in relation to improvements in time and cost recording to be able to have a robust evidence base going forward to understand the cost of a consenting activity. So that would really be the nexus between the tenuous nexus between the Tatiko report and the consideration of the annual plan or the 23-24 deficit. Having said that though, and I will definitely need to confer with my colleague, but I suspect that she would have absolutely no reticence whatsoever in circulating that report. It's a really thorough and very good management level report around practical things that could be done to improve our resource consent processing efficiency. But again, just adding that it didn't extend to the building consent activity, nor the compliance and monitoring activity.
So essentially, the real connection is the opportunity to address some of the issues that led to the deficit. Is that reasonable?
No, processing concerns. So in terms of timeliness and more robust basis for promulgating fees and charges. But I think at the end of the day, the primary driver for the regulatory result in 23-24 was a significant downturn in consenting activity across the board. So resource consents, subdivisions, land use consents, and building consents.
Thank you. Councillor Sol, did you have a...
Yes, sir. I think the offer to circulate it is probably quite important because it is still an issue. It's going to come through. It's a governance issue in one point or another because it exists. And so it doesn't just necessarily sit with staff in its entirety and our view on these charges and how they go. So it would be good to have that circulated, sir.
So I was wanting to put that recommendation, but yep, okay, all right, thank you.
I take, sorry,
Sorry, Adele, if I could come to you before I do that.
Through the chair. So I just wanted to talk about the rating deficit in the context of the fees and charges. So we have gone through a number of years where we've had some significant downturn in the market because of the economic conditions. We have been talking to councillors about what the impact actually meant. So for the regulatory, for the resource consents, we had a 61% downturn in the last financial year and 30% downturn in our building consents. We obviously have an income expectation based on certain volumes, based on our projections, and that wasn't, that wasn't realised in the last financial year. As a result of that not being realised, we didn't actually receive the income that we projected, and that particular activity is the general rates funded area. And so because we didn't receive the income, but we still had some of the costs, and even though we were doing as much as we could to reduce our costs during that time, we were unable to turn those around quick enough given the market conditions. We aren't the only council that faced that in the last year or two. No one could see that downturn coming. But what we have done is looking at our revenue, looking at our projections moving forward, ensuring that our budgets are set with the economic conditions as we know it and can project at the moment, and our fees and charges that accompany that to ensure that we've got the right recoveries in place to do that. So there is a difference between what we had historically and what we're doing moving forward, but we believe that we've got those in place to be able to deal with that. And we believe that the fees and charges have been set appropriately to recover the costs of the activity moving forward.
Thank you, Dale. Okay, I'm going to put that. Did you still put that recommendation then? And we'll, you do. Sorry, we'll make it clear. I couldn't hear you.
yeah, that's right. It was missed the first time.
I asked you twice.
And I said yes.
Sorry, I didn't hear the yes.
Yeah.
You may speak now then.
So I noticed Alison's now joined us, but and had a very quick briefing from Rachel, which is no doubt appreciated. Perhaps before I speak, can we hear from Alison? Seeing as it's a matter that's directly within her purview.
Okay, I think that, Alison, do you wish to comment? Are you able to comment?
I'll try and fill in the gaps from what I've got. So as I understand it, councillors, there was some query around the Tatico report that council commissioned from Tatico, which is external planning agency who are based in Auckland. So that report was commissioned on the basis that we're going through significant reforms, particularly in the resource consenting area. And it was looking at efficiencies and looking at how we can develop a less risk averse environment in terms of the way that we operate. So trying to find ways that we can reduce the costs of our service for consent planning for the developers. So that report has been fed back to our development community. We've had a number of sessions with developers, specifically stakeholder meetings, and with the Urban Task Force to take them through some of the areas that we see for improvement, which is looking at things like templating of some of our more simple resource consent applications, are looking at having greater communication with developers generally. So having more regular engagement so that they understand our process, we understand their limitations in the current environment that they're operating in. Essentially, it was about creating more efficiencies and better working together with our development community, specifically in the resource consenting space.
Okay, thank you. Councillor George.
That was very helpful. Thank you. And I applaud the initiative. I guess the reason why it's come up to a governance level when it was designed as a management report is the downturn that Rachel spoke of, which we're acutely aware of, right? It has affected our budget, it has affected our income, and it's affected our fees and charges as we scramble to make sure that we don't, drop these costs too much on the rest of ratepayers. And I think it was last financial year, we did put some ratepayers' money in to the regulatory space because we knew the hole was there and we can't, cut the whole regulatory team. So I think what lifts it up to the level that we need to see it is the fact that this is actually a very big issue. It's a very big issue that Alison and her team are grappling with. And we've all had feedback about resource consents, and the idea of making them more efficient, I think, would be useful to know. It's great that you're out there talking to the developer community. I think as representatives of the rest of the community, we'd like to see it too, and have a good discussion about where it goes from there. And so, I know Rachel said that could probably be released to us, but if someone could give us a definite answer now that Alison or Miriam is able to answer that, I'll be very helpful.
Okay, thank you. Chief Executive.
I just wanted to make a comment that the building industry and the development industry across the district goes through a cyclical phase. This is probably the 5th or 6th phase that I've seen, the downturn. So it's not unexpected. And so it's always been an issue that we can't determine, what the development is in the district because it's based on macroeconomics. We can't drive all of that. We can provide the infrastructure. The issue for council is making sure that we get the infrastructure in at the right time. In terms of the regulatory space, budgeting for this is difficult, and so that's why I previously mentioned how we used to do a smoothing calculation in our budgets going forward. So over a 3 to 5 year period, we would work out what the average requirement would be in that space, because then we could work out what our rates contribution to that would be and make sure that we didn't have surprise deficits in every year where we went up and down all over the place, because it's not a good thing to do that with ratepayers either, to give them a surprise. So it's more of a smoothing of that, that activity and being able to manage that with it in-house. And so we're looking at that going forward. That would just be my comment.
I thought we were offered earlier that it would be circulated. Someone said
tentatively. I mean, Rachel was not in her purview, right? So tentatively, she said she thought it would be okay. But is there someone that actually, can say it's okay?
To my colleague. So I've just brought it up on my computer whilst you've been having this chit chat. So certainly we can share it with you. I'll also provide you the the report, the feedback that we gave through in terms of a presentation that was provided to our stakeholder community as well. So
Hope the day is going to go a bit faster than this thing. Councillor Daly.
Yeah, my only question is, Alison, you mentioned conversations with developers, including the Urban Task Force. Was this a joint initiative with Tauranga City at all?
So the engagement that we've had with the Urban Task Force has been with our officers, so it hasn't been combined with management from Tauranga City with the Urban Task Force specifically around the Tātako report.
Great. Thank you. Councillor Granger.
Well, I would like to ask Councillor Wickers if he is satisfied or if he still believes there's a smoking gun somewhere that we need to be looking at.
I'm not sure that's what he said, but I'll let him answer.
It's just that report and then a full explanation of the operating deficit that then caused us to have to loan fund it.
Anyway, I think we should stop there and say that as has been highlighted earlier, this is about receiving the report. It's not about agreeing or disagreeing or anything like that. So I'm going to put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. All right.
Same time, I'll move 2 and 3.
Thank you, Councillor Wiggins. Do we have a second? Councillor Joyce has seconded. Are there any speakers? All right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. All right, moving down to number 4. Adoption of the schedule of fees and charges. We have someone wishing to move, Councillor Murray Benj.
I again move item 4 and 2 and the 300, and I'm more than happy to talk to that. And also I think I'll move item 2 and item 3. But I just want to make the point that the farming community, sorry? Have I got a seconder?
Have you finished in terms of what are you doing about number 4 there?
Yes. So it's 4 is 1 and 300, that's 2. And then small 2.
Yeah, all right.
And
yeah.
Small 2 and small 3.
But not the small 4, the Roman numerals 4. You're not moving that.
No, I'm happy to move that too, sir.
Okay.
And 5.
Hang on, we'll leave 5 out for now. We're going to make this complicated. So, yes, you've moved that. Do we have a seconder? Sorry?
You've got to second it before you can ask the questions.
Sorry, you normally do it the other way around. Did I not give you that opportunity? All right.
Just a quick one. As I remember it, the staff said to us that the costs of processing a single movement, stock movement, or a more fulsome application was basically the same. So I understand the driver for the 300, but who will meet the unmet cost if it's not met by the user?
Just bear in mind what we were told the other day or a week or 2 ago, that we'd had no applications in 5 years. So it's almost a moot point.
Okay. I guess I'll ask another way then. Are we expecting an impost on the ratepayer if we have a reduced charge? Is that a better way of asking?
Essentially, I'm getting the indications. All right.
Through the chair, yes.
Sorry. Yes.
Perhaps just offer some explanation. So councillors should bear in mind when they consider this, that it still needs to go to the Strategy and Policy Committee when we consider to adopt the bylaw, whether we even have this as a category of fee. So you might want to think this is a placeholder fee that might not ever eventuate, because frankly, no one uses this item anyway.
Thank you. All right. So moving back to the motion, it's been moved. Councillor Murray Bench, seconded Councillor Thwaites.
I'd like to speak
Are there
to it.
any speakers?
Yes, of
Councillor
course.
Murray Bench.
As I said before, Sue, the submitter, who was from Federated Farmers, was really concerned about the regulations and the costs that keep coming onto them. And they sometimes have to move stock quite quickly. And they'd love a telephone number that they could inform council as to what they're doing. The fact that it doesn't happen, maybe it's because they don't bother, because they just do it anyway, which they've always done. And so, sir, I think we're trying to tidy this up. But I think that in fairness to the Federated Farmers, this is one time when we can actually keep the costs down. And so I'm happy to with the $300.
Thank you. Councillor Wickers.
Yeah, I'll be voting against it for the reasons I outlined on item 1.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Sol.
Sir, as we are now in the debate of this, the area that actually just disappoints me a little bit has been the fee for the trading in public places that we perhaps could have increased. It was something I brought up earlier. I have not probably pursued it hard enough, but I do look at the situation that I like the idea of people being able to come and park on our roads, etc., and trade. It gives vibrance and so on to the community, in particular the one that I live in. But it also is at times perhaps seen, if not is, detrimental to the retailer who has had a major increase in their rates previously. I noticed that we've managed to negate that a bit, so that's good, but it does just concern me that people are able to come in cheaply to operate in our retail or close to our retail spaces, and I just feel that those that are in fixed premises are paying quite large rating situations and fees and charges. Well, these people are doing it without paying the rates, and their fee and charge has only gone up by the inflation rate. That's all I can say, sir.
Thank you. I don't think we've exhausted the speak. Oh, sorry, Councillor Thwaites.
I did second it, and going forward, obviously part 4 is far more significant than stock crossings, stock movements that never occur, and that's the project information for small dwellings. And I think this is quite a changeable space at the moment with the government allowing the granny flats and all the rest. So obviously I'm supporting it this year, but I just note that that's obviously something to watch going forward, because the government are talking about 0 fees for granny flats and that. So just to marry the two together. But I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Denyer.
I think I just want to point out that this is to respond to the government's move on granny flats, as it were. I'll be supporting this. I think we've done what we can to just trim a couple of items, but in the end, we go on a user pays basis, and the fees are what they need to be. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'll put the motion. Oh, sorry, writer reply.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, sorry. I apparently have another speaker. Councillor Henry.
I was just going to say, I totally agree with Councillor Sol, and if he's willing to put a motion to increase that sole trading or whatever it's called, street trading, I would be happy to second it. We have spoken to lots of people in our community, particularly Waihi Beach, over the winter months that struggle to stay open, and then they have people coming in for one-off events that actually just creams all their cream away from them. And I would like to see that there is there's some more money that's being put back. Okay, it's not going to go to the people who are in the community, but they do get a very cheap deal for a whole day's trading in a community that has other people who are trying to capture that financial gain as well.
Thank you. I'll ask the Deputy Chief Executive to respond before we go to the Rider report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I certainly do acknowledge the sentiment expressed by councillors Sol and Henry. I would urge caution about making a decision in relation to the charge through this meeting. The reason why I say that is that the charge reflects the administrative cost of processing a trading in public places licence. What I sense you are both referring to is more in relation to the objectives we're trying to achieve through the bylaw. And if you felt that there needed to be more recognition of the potential for competition that arises, or cheap competition that arises through a coffee cart or the like, my recommendation to you would be that that is something that is considered through a bylaw review rather than through the fees and charges process. And that fee is solely for staff time to process the trading in public places licence.
Yeah, thank you.
That makes sense.
Thank you for that, Rachel. And I think that is a really suitable thing for this council to look at. And have you any idea when that bylaw would be reviewed? Is it coming up soon?
It's certainly not on our work program, which rather ironically is coming to you shortly in terms of the strategy and policy work program is coming to you on the 12th of June for resolution, having been workshopped with you last week. It's not on our rotation, but it could be something that is discussed to be on the next to-do list.
Okay, thank you. Can that be done?
So, Councillor Sol, you comfortable with that?
Basically, I am. I only really made note of it because it concerns me, but it's an area that can be addressed in many facets, including our rating policy as well, which is again going to be reviewed in the future. So it's just really saying, hey, this needs to be noted and looked at in the future. And I take on board quite clearly what the Deputy CEO has said about this is about the fee and so on. And that's where I guess we look at future things, but it is an area that is of concern. Thank you for the answers. More than happy.
Councillor Gray.
Well, my question is to the Deputy CEO. We are told quite often that it's bad practice to put stuff in the bylaws because we can't change it. And the fees and charges is the appropriate place to put things because they can be changed every year. So if I got that wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wasn't talking about the fee. I was talking more around the bylaw settings that you're trying to, so what you're actually trying to achieve through your bylaw that then in turn would drive an appropriate charge through your next or subsequent fees and charges reviews.
Councillor Joyce.
I don't know if it's helpful, but to my mind, one of the things that permanent shopkeepers are expected to do is contribute to the promotion of the little CBD, right? And perhaps an element of that, because that is a cost to business and it is part of being in business on that street, could be built into the fees and charges. The fact that they are contributing to the promotional needs of their area the same as other retailers. I think that would be a fair way of building it into the fees and charges. I also realise it's very late in the piece for this year, but it may be something we could look at for next year's fees and charges because that is a legitimate business cost and a legitimate cost associated with the application. It would help even the field a little bit.
Great, thank you for that comment. So I'll now go to the right of reply.
Thank you, sir. The one thing that we've had lately is rates and commercial rates that have gone on to small businesses, and down at the Domain in Omokoroa, the rates have gone from 6,000 to over 10,000, and that of course falls on the little people who actually run their businesses. So it's recognition to councillors to be very cautious about when we put rates increases up for commercial users. The small people aren't necessarily the big users. But sir, one of the things that I feel at the moment is that local government is really under pressure, and the building services is no exception. And there is a move to have independent people, and that legislation is passed through the House under Chris Pink. And so I'm saying the more efficient and effective we can be, the more likely we are in our service to our communities to be much more successful. Because one of the things we know is that there is integrity in what we do in local government, and we are a service industry. So I think the costs here, although they are, we would love to see them lower, I can understand the predicament that we're in. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. With that, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. So moving to the fifth recommendation there, do I have a, sorry, I'm sure there's no, hopefully there's no questions, Councillor Joyce, but, oh, there is. You moved. Okay, and a seconded, Councillor Sol. No speakers, I'm assuming. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Thank you. Right. We can move on to financial contributions. So, Peter, do you wish to come forward?
Good morning, all. The purpose of the report is to receive the recommendations on financial contributions after hearing submissions and taking both verbal and written submissions. The recommendation is to adopt the financial schedule as it exists, or not amend it, and pick up the relevant disclosure and financial contribution schedule for 25-26.
Thank you for that, Peter. So do we have any questions? Daniel? Oh, sorry.
To move back.
Yeah,
Questions
I'll
first.
just give Councillor Henry.
Okay, yeah, on the, we're looking at, oh no, sorry, I'm in the wrong place.
We're on 10.2 financial contributions. I'll come back to you in a minute, Councillor Henry. Councillor Joyce.
Just one of the submitters drew a comparison of our FinCos with Auckland's DevCos. And I was wondering whether that's an apples comparison, because of course Auckland Water Care is a separate body. So I'm just wondering, are we out of line, or are we broadly in line with other authorities? Also allowing for the fact that Auckland's obviously got huge economies of scale.
Yes, no, I think the fundamentally that submission was out of whack with reality. There's a lot of documentation on Auckland. The fact that water care services were to be added to give a total picture of the development contributions in Auckland, which over some of the, I prepared a paper on that, expecting that submission to be spoken to. I don't have that with me, but however, my evidence suggested that Auckland DCs were hitting 85 to 105,000, so way in excess of what was quoted in that submission.
So basically that's a partial picture because of the split in Auckland between water care and council.
Yeah, and it seemed out of whack with the current changes, that the infrastructural driven costs that changed Auckland at the same timing. It seemed to be at least a year out, if not longer, and it did not consider water services as a separate charge.
Thank you. Councillor Henry, you had a question there?
This is relating to financial contributions, but it's comparing it to what developers have to pay in terms of their lodgement fees. And one of the developers that I've been talking to, they've been talking about when there's a minor change on a plan, like moving a door to somewhere else like that, the fee is still quite high for that, what be, I would think a fairly simple thing. So that was one of the comments that they came out with. So have, you know, a minor change, some minor changes. I don't know whether that's what it means. A moving of a door on a plan, $1,000. Financial pressure, and
I guess it comes back to, from a consenting perspective, it's about cost recovery in terms of our time spent on processing those consents. So from a developer's perspective, they don't necessarily always see the cost until they get the bill at the end, which is around the time for all of our subject matter experts, if it's something that we're having to do a detailed analysis around. The interrelationship with FinCos is obviously when we are looking at matters in terms of stormwater design, we're looking at water, wastewater, roading design that goes into that resource consent. Those things have to be looked at through the consenting process, and the time and cost recovery for all of those subject matter experts is invoiced as part of their final fee. The impact in terms of the infrastructure is what we recover through financial contributions. So they're completely separate.
No, I'm just, looking.
Okay, we've got another question, councillor Murray Benge.
I've got two questions. Will these charges make the system go faster? Following on from councillor Henry, developers are saying they're strapped, and we're putting our costs up to such an extent it's crippling them. And so what we need is houses. And the slower we go, the more difficult it is to get the houses built. So do these cost increases actually help us to go faster? Sir.
It's a big question. I mean, effectively our charge structure is based around our project list and how much it costs to put the infrastructure in place. And that's simply divided by the number of people that we have believe that will be uptaken. So it's just simply maths around, I guess, the increased infrastructural cost of the impact, and therefore the only real spin we can do on that is to relate maybe market conditions to timing and phasing of our projects, and constantly looking at that. But in terms of a market downturn, this is cyclical, as our CEO has mentioned, and costs are very high, and that's driven by through a lot of reasons, a lot of it being central government requirements around standards for water and wastewater. Speeding up and slowing down, I guess it's normal economic cycles, and whether or not the alternate for land use is more efficient for housing or for farming or horticulture. So there's a whole piece on that. One thing I did get from the submissions this year is that perhaps a close liaison with developers and more regular forums is a good idea, so we understand what their hurdles are to developing affordable or getting affordable housing. And a lot of the suggestions put up by Mr. Collier at the submissions talk to longer term strategies. We're advocating with central government around GST, for example, a lot of other things around new funding tools for infrastructure that kept up with, I guess, our current requirements to broaden the funding tools to make sure that development does continue to happen. But this is not a different subject. There's recently been a DC forum in Hamilton, and the DIO put up a paper with many alternatives around where we're going in this space. But this is not a Western Bay specific issue. This is all over the country.
Thank you. And my second question, sir, is when when we have a problem with the resource consent, we can actually ask whoever is making the application to hold, we want more information. So why are we charging for a request for extension of time for consents? Why minimum fee, additional time and costs will apply if they're just asking for a hold on the consent? Why would we charge them when we don't hesitate to hold things on hold while we request more information? There was just a small point, but I just think it's one of those unnecessary costs that we don't need to have.
So yes, Chair, there's always an administrative cost depending on where it is in terms of the process. So we obviously look to try and keep the fees as low as possible. Those are fees that we will assess based on time and cost, and there will be adjustments made. So they're not necessarily always the final charge that are received by the applicant.
Yeah. All right.
But it doesn't say up to.
No, it's a deposit, and you can get deposits back.
Thank you. Right. Mayor was ready to move before, and Councillor Thwaites wanted to second. Are there any speakers, Mayor?
I'll speak to it. So I do want to acknowledge the increase in FinCos, but the options are limited, and I sense there is little or no appetite amongst ratepayers to subsidise developers and growth at this point. I hope ultimately, though, that the development levies that the government has signalled will create a bit, and other funding mechanisms will improve the framework, because it's not an easy system we have to work with, and there's got to be a better way. But at the moment we're on FinCos, and growth has to pay for growth, and this is the way we do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thwaites.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I did take the opportunity to second it because we're certainly coming to the end of our life of charging financial contributions. We thought we were going some 6 years ago, and they got a reprieve when the Labor government reversed the changes. RMA changes are coming. The Mayor's touched on development levies coming forward into the counterpoint to Councillor Murray Benj's change about affordable housing is there's only two sources of funding, either growth pays for growth or else existing people pays for growth. So you've got to, it falls on rates then. Obviously there are other tools where areas can pay with IFF type levies and additional funding falling on new suburbs and that, so there are options. In light of what we were talking about yesterday, stormwater, I finally got home last night and read all the information. Peter had it there. I hadn't opened this document at the time. And just the Omokoroa stormwater charges in line to fund that at the current rate of 17,000 whatever property, it needs 2,500 properties to fund what we're forecasting on in terms of projects. There's not even that many properties left to develop. So we're almost, by adopting these, we're almost taking it on the chin as ratepayers, because we're going to pick up the shortfall because the development levies aren't even covering growth. You can do the multiplication there. But anyway, that's on the side. Hopefully some more work come out of it. So that's why I support it. And it's project driven. So you've got to go back and look at the projects and see the cost and the timing of those that generates the FinCos. So long-winded answer for one more year. And then they're probably going to die very shortly, and then development levies will replace them.
Space. Thank you, Councillor Thwaites. Councillor Joyce.
Pick up some of the points, obviously, that the Mayor and Councillor Thwaites have made. You know, this change is coming. The issue we have, I mean, the submissions say our system is opaque, and frankly, I find it opaque as well. Yeah, we're told we reviewed the structure plans, but actually that sort of whizzed by in a moment. You know, we never actually sit down and look at them. Sure, I'm not going to tell the sewerage engineers where to put their pipes, but there are other things in there as well that we should be looking more clearly at. Growth needs to pay for growth. It hasn't historically at this council. You know, we have had ratepayers left with the bill. And as the Mayor points out, there's only two ways to pay at the moment, FinCos or ratepayers. So it comes back to the end customer at the end of the day. I just think if the government doesn't actually move forward with its alternative fundings, we do need to have a closer look at this. I still can't quite understand. I know it was taken out, but I still can never understand why Te Puke developers were expected to contribute to a boat ramp at the other end of the district, for example. It just never made any sense to me. And the idea that, you know, okay, it's convenient for us that the recreation part of the FinCos is district wide actually doesn't really hold water. So, you know, if the government doesn't do change, we need to do change. While accepting that if the government is going to do the change, then there's no point us making a change for 1 year, as Councillor Thwaites pointed out. But yeah, the system is not perfect, and it's tied to the district plan. But also don't forget that if we did suddenly go to DevCos, for example, the government has kindly exempted itself from those. So, you know, if we did that, the government wouldn't be paying for growth either.
Thank you. Councillor Henry.
Yes, I'm very grateful for the work that you're doing. And it wasn't very long before I started in council listening to Councillor Thwaites talk through many meetings about how FinCos weren't paying for growth. And so, and I look back over it and I could see, and I know it's a timing issue, but when you look over 3 years, you see that it's a bit more than a timing issue. So I'm really grateful for the work that this council has got you to do. And what you have given us is just 1 year, isn't it? So we're still looking at the transition, and it might take, I don't know whether you've got an anticipated time of how much longer you think that it will look for what the outcome is going to be. Is it not going to be financial contributions or developers?
Yeah, I think with the most of our FinCos and costs relate to Three Waters or Local Waters Done Well will certainly crystallise where we sit as a council around growth debt and whether or not the new entity will take on debt, and that's probably a negotiation and due diligence process that will go on. But it's an opportune time to perhaps look at where we are over a long period of time in terms of the reckoning and whether growth has paid for growth. I know there's a lot of fundamentally there's a belief that growth doesn't pay for growth, and it fundamentally under collects around the DC formula, which ours pretty much follows that type of modelling. But again, a lot of this will come to roost very, very soon around the Local Waters Done Well. So we'll start to see some clarity around the position of historic FinCos where we sit.
In my earlier comments when I was speaking in the regulatory space is that what the and I don't have a lot of sympathy with the developers in terms of the FinCos going up, because as I just said before, they were down. But they've also experienced a relatively big hike in their regulatory fees when submitting work into council. And so struggling with that, and one of the submitters resonates with me over and over. What he said was that he views that the council fees are higher than the market rate fees that they're paying. He said he wouldn't mind he wouldn't mind paying them if he got that service. So that's a challenge to the regulatory team from that developer, and I haven't forgotten it, but he was very nice about it. And I would hope that if it'd be the normal thing that everyone would think, if you're paying more for something, you expect that you get a better service.
Thank you. Councillor Murray-Benge.
Thank you, sir. One of the things that I've found in the time that I've been at this council is that we will blame developers because they make a profit. But I've been there long enough to know that they take the risk, and we could not do anything unless we had people who were prepared to take a risk and do developments. And the risk is take Prowl Road, for example. It's beautiful. It's an infrastructure that we have done, and then development can occur off it. And I'm so pleased that we are talking to developers and understanding their issues and knowing that we have to combine each other to actually keep moving forward for people. The requirement, sir, to have a certain amount of land available will in fact reduce the cost for housing, because the cost of land is so exorbitant. And when you've got confined zoned areas, it makes it hideously difficult for a developer to price it and to make sure that his or her hands going out, they don't touch the walls of the other house. We're squeezing people into little pieces of pockets, and it's changing our lifestyle. So, sir, I speak in defense of developers. We can do nothing unless they're prepared to take the risk. And I've seen really good people here who have risked everything and have gone away with nothing because the risk they took didn't work out. And we didn't gloat, we just sympathized with them. But I do beg you to understand, if we want the thing to move, we have got to make sure that our prices and our networks are working together. And under Ross Patterson, for example, introducing new information, sir. Under Ross Patterson, it's not a right reply. Under Ross Patterson, we found a piece of land that we were able to work with the developer and develop affordable housing. That was at Amokoroa. And so there are different options that we can do. But in the meantime, I just say, don't shoot the people who make it happen. Make sure that we work in with them, not to subsidize them, but to make sure that they're paying their way and they've got a fair deal.
Thank you. We've got one more speaker, Councillor Sol.
Thank you, sir. I think basically in the end, we've got little choice here. This is what we've got. Again, it's late in the piece in any way to change things. The fact is it's going to change. It's just not this year. And I think that's one of the things we have to accept. I actually support very much Councillor Murray-Benja's thing about the developers, and they are the ones that take the risk. I know I looked at buying purchasing a piece of land some years ago, knowing that it would be able to be developed. But I realised I, number one, wouldn't have had the money to do it. Number two, I wouldn't have had the fortitude to have gone through the issues that go with it after having noticed how many fall over. So that was not for me. But sir, I think the thing is, what's going to be interesting in the future is that these costs are going to be interesting in other areas that don't have the same costs that we somehow have, that we often get slated as being too high, too expensive, etc. They're going to come home to roost in the new structure because there's no other way. They're going to have to pay for it there. The ratepayer is going to probably pay either for some of it, or they're going to make. So in other words, it's going to be spread out and everybody's going to be treated much the same, or the developer is going to have to face those charges throughout the country. So if it affects us short term, I guess it affects us. Let's get on with it, and let's see where the actual can comes to stop down the street somewhere along the way.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, did you want to write a reply?
No, I think it's all been covered. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. With that, I think it's appropriate we take a break for morning tea before we delve into the next lineup, which could get a bit complicated. So we'll break now and we'll be back here at 11:45. Okay, thank you all. We are ready to resume. It was pointed out to me morning tea that I failed to welcome another Matt back. It's great to have you here, Matt Potton, and look forward to your contributions in due course. Yeah, cool. So if we could resume with the next item, 10.3, the deliberations and recommendations on the annual plan. So unless there's any questions about the first part, I'll ask if we've got a mover and a seconder for 1 and 2. Oh, sorry, Rebecca, you're coming. I'm jumping the gun, am I? After all your work, I better let you have something to say.
Morena, yes, thank you for giving me the opportunity. So the purpose of this report is to enable us to prepare the final annual plan for the 26th June council meeting. You'll see that there is a number of attachments to this report, and there is a tabled item. So tabled item 1 is to replace the sample rates assessment that is part of attachment 2. So moving through the paper, as I said, the purpose of this paper is to seek the decisions of this committee to recommend to council to adopt the annual plan. There are 4 issues and options papers that require decisions today. They include the community board funding, the delivery of parking services, water supply treatment plant upgrades, and the Waihi Beach wastewater treatment plant upgrades. We also require a decision regarding the strategic assumptions of the capital delivery assumption, as well as the structure plans and the financial information. I will take the body of the report as read and answer any questions.
Thank you, Rebecca. Do we have any questions? You must. After we've dealt with the receipt and the strategic assumptions, the actual specifics we'll do one by one, certainly. So it seems there are no questions at this point. So do we have a mover for the first 2 or 3, or how many? 2. Okay, we'll settle on 2. Seconded Councillor Henry. There are no speakers? Yes, sorry.
So I'll be voting against this. It's quite disheartening that in the body of the report, in the financial overview, the reasons given for the increase of 1.5, effectively up to 8.92, is not the actual reason, and everyone pretty much in this room knows that. And to lead with that in the report, I find that very disheartening when we are trying to get transparency and to build the trust that we can rely on information that's presented to us. This is part of the $14 million deficit that we agreed we would put $1.5 million of rates, and that is effectively what led that change to that, and we know that. So I'll be voting against that.
Are there any other speakers? Seems not. I'll put the recommendations then. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Thank you. Got that? I declare it carried. All right. So moving on then to the strategic assumptions. Sorry, 280. That's what it's got here. I'll give you, pardon me, I'll give you a moment to find that. attachment 6 there. Is that correct? Okay. You found it, councillor Sol?
What page are the recommendations?
172 for the recommendations, 283.
Right, if there's no questions, I'm looking for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Joyce, councillor Murray Benge. If you wish to speak, thank you.
One of the issues that we had at this council is that we have been promising things and funding them, not taking the loans out early, but certainly taking money from ratepayers for projects that we weren't actually delivering. Now, okay, COVID was part of that. We were down to around only a 70% delivery rate at one stage. Now we are back up to where we should be, which is the money and projects we say we're going to do in a year, we're actually doing. That's a good thing. However, it does come obviously at a cost. And I've talked about this in the past and others have as well. Now that we're actually doing the work and the debt is going very high, we will need to have a very, very, very serious look about whether we can afford all the projects we've promised. Because, that buffer of unspent, undone work that, amongst other things, helped to keep our net debt down, that is fast disappearing. That is fast disappearing. And, we could well be facing a debt bomb, And how does the debt bomb affect us? Well, that means the interest costs go up and up each year. And as was shown in the audit and risk yesterday, we could be spending 20 million, 21 million a year on interest. And while it's very well in theory to say, well, we're spreading the cost of the asset over the life of the asset, actually, when you get up to that point, you come into the same realm as we do with roading. We're always going to have to do work every year, so there's no point loan funding it because we're just going to have to pay interest. And you've got to start thinking, well, what other parts of council are we starting to get at that point? Because imagine how many libraries or swimming pools you could build for $21 million a year. At what point? And the other thing that's happening, of course, is the waters, and it will be ring fenced either internally or externally. And that's the part that really needs the debt. And my concern, one of my concerns is that once that gets parked to one side, our debt looks really low. It's going to be enormously tempting to run up more debt for more new projects. And our neighbouring council's mayor, not our mayor, but our neighbouring council's mayor has already said, but if we do this, we'll have all this ability to do more things. And that is something also we need to watch, because actually the ratepayers need a break in all this. And if we go on a spending spree once that water's debt is off, then we're going to have other problems as well of affordability. So I'm happy that we're now achieving, and these are all we're looking at is the assumptions. I know there are some wider issues out there, but the assumption now is that we are going to deliver what we say we're going to deliver. And that to me is a step forward in terms of that, but it does open the door to a whole bunch of new issues.
Thank you. Were you wanting to speak, councillor Murray Benge?
I see that there's no alternative to the recommendations that are before us, and how I loathe parking services. I accept that we have limited parking and you've got to rationalise that. So the parking
We're
service.
not talking about that item yet. We're talking about the strategic assumptions that go behind the plan. Recommendation 3.
I think, sir, that we have no alternative to accept this. I think the recommendations that are before us have been well thought through. They've been workshopped, and I just can't see how we can do any more. And I'm not quite sure why you want to take them all separately, because I I'm happy with the information that is before us.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be councillors who wish to have things to say on the different matters as we come to them one by one. So that's why I've decided to take them separately.
So I
Right.
can speak again to each one.
There will
Very
be
good.
further opportunity. Okay, councillor Sol.
Sir, I just want to endorse what has been said previously, that it does open doors to other temptations in the future, but what we have is there. It works well with what we've had to or are going to deliver and how we're going to go about it. So, sir, it's simple to support.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to put the recommendation then. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. So, moving on to the options. The first one up is the community board funding. Do you wish to say any more, Rebecca, in regard to this? Or sorry, apologies, pages 229 to 236.
I think we can leave the paper as read, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. So questions, councillor Joyce.
Just regarding the costs that are in here, are they just the admin costs or do they include the other costs of the community board, such as their grants, budgets and other things?
It's their total budget.
Total budget, okay.
Yep. Any other questions? Okay, all right. I'm looking for someone to move then. Councillor Henry, Councillor Murray Bench, you're moving option 1. Correct, thank you. All right, do we have any speakers? Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we'd just like to note that we're constrained by the Local Government Commission's determination, which is a hybrid outcome and not entirely what either side might have expected, should we say. It's not perfect, but it's the funding we've proposed here is not perfect, but it's probably the best we can do in this situation. And look forward to consulting on targeted rates next year, which will hopefully solve the remaining niggles in this setup. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Joyce.
I realise the timing constraints we're under, but I do feel for the people of Makatu. The reason I asked my question was because I think we do need to look at the two halves separately, right? The admin cost of a community board is not totally related to the number of people that it serves. I can think of a community board out our way that has taken an enormous amount of officer time. Try not to smile too much. And yeah, much more than any other community board. And the fact that there are more people there than in Makatu, the admin cost of that community board was no doubt a lot higher than Makatu. So I do think we should probably equalise the admin cost, which is a real cost, staff time. And then we should look at the rest of the budget, which is what they actually do with the money, separately. I realise this idea has come up late in the piece. And so I don't really see an option to do that this year. But as the mayor said, we'll have a good look at it for next year, whoever's on council after the election. And I think we should be certainly equalising the staff time part of it, because size has nothing to do with how much time the staff spend on a community board, or certainly on recent past history. And then and also it's also the part of the budget where the community board doesn't really get much say, because it's, we're cascading staff costs. But then if the community board wants to do more, then they are then responsible to their community on how much more they do. And the obvious example there is the Katikati Town Centre Development Fund, where Katikati said, well, they were not happy, as well before my time, they were not happy with what council was doing, so they wanted to do more, so they levied their people more. And that to me is a fair way of giving the community boards more independence to do what their community wants. So that would be where I'd like to see us going towards, or at least considering. The hard part is we have to have a budget this month. And I realise there's not time to do that for this year, but I would say to the people of Makatu, I'm sure we can come up with a better answer in future.
Thank you. Councillor Thwaites.
Thanks, sir. I'd like to move an amendment that we amend the Makatu charge and that instead of the $25 across the property for the 4, that whatever it is, it goes about $3 a property up to 28 and fund Makatu on exactly the same basis as the other 4. And if I get a seconder, I'm happy to talk to it.
Okay. I guess I have to accept that. So you wish to speak now?
Yeah, you're pausing a bit, which worries me. But anyway, you're going to pull some procedural thing on me. But I'll speak now. Look, I honestly think this is not the outcome in terms of the representation review that I voted on at the time, but I accept the commissioner's finding. I wanted the straight line 3 simple boards, which would seem equitable across the district, but I acknowledge the case that particularly Katikati and Waihi Beach and Makatu put forward to retain theirs. So I do. I don't believe that $3 a property, if that's what the number is, or roughly about that, is going to be a make or break. We do support other districts in terms of the cross subsidisation argument. We're currently spending $10 a property across the whole district renovating an art centre in Katikati. We're spending about $13 or $14 a property towards Katikati Museum. They're spread across the whole district, and I just see this 174 is so out of kilter. Next year, there's going to be new properties added to it, and those people are going to get a massive shock because they're going to go from 0 up to whatever the new number would be if this stays in place. So I believe change has to occur. So that's why I believe that the Makatu community should be funded from the uniform annual general charge. I know it doesn't meet the exact model of paying it off, but I believe it's such a small amount, and I believe it'd be goodwill to that community to bring them on board. We've got a lot to do in the future out there, especially around the whole water space, and I'd love them to be on the front foot and not have a stone in their shoe. So that's my 2 cents worth, or $3 worth. Thank you.
Yeah. Before we move on, I'll just go to the Chief Executive to comment, please.
I'm not quite clear, Councillor Thwaites, but in terms of any alteration to the UAGC, it has to be across the board. You can't reallocate the UAGC if you set it at a certain level. You can't do it that way. So you can't set a number that you're going to recover across the district, for instance, and then reallocate that, because that's the whole purpose of the UAGC.
Yeah, I just see the
That's the Rating Act. Yeah.
Sure, I see the UAGC and the general rate pretty much synonymous. It goes in the same bucket and just funds things across the whole district. So it could be funded from the general rate, the difference to make it up. I'm still advocating to leave the UAGC at the $700 figure we struck, or we talked about earlier, which is going to come up shortly, but fund it through the general rate mechanism. Those two both go into the same bucket and are funded by the whole district. So I wasn't thinking of the UAGC.
So if you take out the UAGC consideration and it's a general rate, then wasn't something that was consulted on. So it boils down to the issue about, is this a significant change in what was proposed? So council needs to decide that from the general rate, but it's not something that has been discussed up until now. Is that correct? So council needs to decide, is this significant or not? I'm just making sure that we get our rating right here. We can't go down the UAGC path. And if you want to go to a subsidisation, you need to agree that it's not significant and it doesn't have an impact on the other ratepayers affected.
And again, that's what I was talking about, 64,000, whatever it is, out of $104 million. I don't see that as significant, but anyway, others might view it differently.
To be clear, I'm not saying that it's not significant. It's just council has to make that decision and you have to provide a rationale for that.
We'll move on. I've got another speaker in the mayor and
Thank you.
number of speakers.
I think for me, it's not so much the significance. I mean, $3 or thereabouts, and I've been just knowing what the actual number is. You know, it's not huge, but it is the principle of it. You know, we would be subsidising Makatu, the rest of the district would be subsidising Makatu. There was a very deliberate and conscious decision by Makatu that they wanted a small board that just dealt with them, and there was a cost to that localism. There's always a balance between localism and efficiency. But my main concern with this is that it cost about $180 to run a community board in Makatu, doing a fairly modest amount of stuff. We could subsidise it for 1 year, which will take that cost down for Makatu people to $28 or thereabouts, and then next year it goes back up to probably $200. And so you're subsidising a significant rates cut and then putting it all back the next year. That just seems to be a bit inconsistent and all over the place, and against the principles of how we rate and fund things. So I'm not in favour of it.
Yeah. Okay. Next up, I've got Councillor Murray Bench.
Sympathetic and all as I am, as was the mayor, it can't be done, so it can't be done. We've already decided that the town centre fund, 80,000, will go to Makatu. So it's not that we're not supporting Makatu, we definitely are, but I think this is a move too far. I'm all in favour of community boards. I think that's the one thing that sets us apart from any other council. We're closer to the people, and that's who we represent. So I'll speak to that again shortly, but I can't support this amendment.
Thank you. Next, Councillor Wickers.
Yep, I too am sympathetic, but when we were deliberating on this, my closing, I had to write a reply, and in the closing, I said, as a council, we were split on the ward-wide versus specific, and I specifically put a challenge back at the leaders of the communities that were here speaking in support of the community boards, and they took it upon themselves to advocate to the commissioners for their view of how things should be, and this is a direct result of that. And so it's sort of that cautionary tale of be aware of what you wish for.
Thank you. Councillor Sol.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. First thing, actually, I must say it's not the Katikati Museum, it is the Western Bay Museum. The situation with Makatu, it was a choice that Makatu people made initially quite some time ago. And so I think where it's landed is very unfortunate, I guess, in many ways. And I actually do have sympathy for spreading it, as has been suggested by Councillor Thwaites. To be honest, I don't think there's likely to be a big issue from the community boards themselves. So it is the rate payer that would be the one that's affected by us not perhaps giving them the opportunity to say yes or no. So I'm quite conflicted on it. I'm interested in any other argument for or against before I really commit myself 100% on it, sir.
Thank you. If I could interrupt again and go to the Chief Executive, please.
Just to provide a little bit of history, just to comment that for a number of years, up until probably about 6 or 7 years ago, the Makatu Community Board did have an additional rate that they rated for, and I think it got to about $170 a year in addition, and that was voted on by the actual community board members so that they could do major projects and have enough funding. If you remember, Carol, from your time at Makatu, and then that fund stopped, I think, probably 2 representation rounds ago. So for a number of years, they had a large rate that they used to do local projects. So there's a bit of history there.
Thank you. Councillor Granger.
Sir, I too have sympathy with the concept that Councillor Thwaites proposes, but we heard very, very clearly at the representation review hearings and what have you that Makatu said council tried to reduce the rate on Makatu residents by having the larger area for the community board, and they told us very clearly that they did not want that. They wanted to say small, they were special and different, and they were quite happy to pay whatever it took to do so. And so that's what they asked for, and that's what they've got. And so if it presents difficulties in the rating world, then I think we have to stick with the $174 that they asked to pay.
Right, Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Sir. I just wanted to say a couple of things. So firstly, everybody's right. The Makatu Community Board absolutely was happy to pay for themselves to exist, and the entire community basically supported that. I don't think, though, that we envisioned to pay more than we used to pay. We also extensively asked year upon year for extension. We finally got that. And then we thought that that would mean that we pay a little bit less, but it does not appear that that's happened because of the timing and whatnot. So the reason that I seconded the amendment was to hopefully buy some time, I guess. But I do take the Mayor's point that it's not an ideal situation to suddenly go, hang on, we're going to pull it back and then we'll take it back up, because that's probably not what anybody would want. But I think that there's room, if we just wait, there's room to change some of those figures and bring it down. So that was the only reason that I supported what Don said. But other than that, we are absolutely happy to pay for ourselves to exist.
Thank you. Councillor Joyce.
Yep. I come back to what I was talking about before. I think there is a case to level the admin charges, but what's being proposed is basically, well, if a community board, let's separate it from Makatu for a moment, wants to increase, say, its grants budget, then the whole district would pay more. And I don't think that's equitable. So the concept is flawed of just equalising the whole budgets right across. If there was a way to equalise the administration part, which is a big part, particularly for Makatu, then I'd be all in favour. But unfortunately, at this stage for this year, it's not. So, it's mucky and it's last minute, and it's, I don't think good governance to start chopping and changing right at the end of the process like this. We've already done it a couple of times lately, and I think we need to be a little bit more structured and look at how we can help Makatu in the long term, rather than bouncing around at the last minute with headline grabbing ideas.
Thank you. Councillor Henry.
I agree with the status quo, but what I don't feel comfortable about is how it was presented to us in our minutes today, our agenda today, and what we've had the benefit of today is talking around how we got there and what this means, what the people wanted and what it meant for them. I would like to see, and there's no explanation for it in here. So when it goes out and it's socialised with the community, I'd like to see that reminder is actually put in there, how this happened and how this one community board stands out in terms of the others with a large amount. Because when it's explained, be careful what you wish for. And they did kind of know that they were going to get much more. If I get the feeling that that's the case, but it's not explained in here, and I'd like to see that simple explanation was put in there, please.
Okay, I think we've been around the table, so I'm now going to put the amendment. Those in favour, please say, or better raise hands here, I think. Those in favour, raise your right hand. All right, those against. So I declare it lost. So we're back to the original, help me, who? Councillor Henry and Councillor Murray-Benge moved option 1. So we're back there. Mr. Thwaites.
Am I allowed to speak to this? Given I spoke before and I didn't, I realised I didn't have a right of reply under the amendment.
Yeah.
I can speak now? Just
All
2
right.
seconds worth?
Yeah. I'll let
Just
you
in
do that.
calendar, because I didn't have a right reply, some of the issues around the table, everyone was high and mighty, we aren't going to subsidise anyone. I just point out that the third of the district that makes up Katikati and Waihi Beach are going to get funded through $187,000 under this budget. Well, guess what? They are getting unequitable funding up there in that third of the district. And when you compare it to the Kaimai ward of 107,000 budget. So there is some cross subsidisation going on under this magical one number that applies over 4 wards. Guess what? Cross subsidisation flows one way, it seems. It flows towards Katikati Waihi Beach, but it doesn't flow towards Makatu. So that's my 2 cents. $186,000 is the budget for those two combined.
All right.
But they only paying the same as everyone else. So they are getting cross subsidised up there. So Makatu can feel hard done by because it's not fair, a fair, equitable shakedown.
Okay, thank you. If we could stick to the matter at hand of
Well, that's the numbers,
the
isn't it?
distribution of the community board funds, councillor Joyce.
I mean, I hear what councillor Thwaites is saying. I think this is the failure of using the UAGC for this, right? You know, a community board that wants to spend more because it's funded from the UAGC is putting an impost on the whole district. That's the issue here. So we haven't quite got the system right yet. We will do. And it's, you know, people are lamenting that they didn't quite get what the local government commission didn't give them what they wanted, but actually, hello, for some of us, we've been telling you this all along, and it wasn't being listened to by various people. So, you know, that problem that Don talks about is not because an area is getting subsidised or not. It's because we're doing it in the UAGC, which is not a good solution. The community should be paying for their community boards, or particularly the projects the community boards want to do. As I say, admin, I don't agree with it being population-based because community boards can be a lot more work, no matter how big or small they may be. So, you know, let's fix this next year.
Okay, do we have any other speakers? Oh, councillor Murray Bean. Oh, sorry. Well.
I agree with what Rodney said. I think that barring a few exceptions, there is probably on any one topic, there's in a year, there could be more balance in one community board and more in the other another year. So having a uniform fee for administration across the whole board, I think would be fairly sensible in terms of the meeting process of what I'm thinking about. And what happens after that is really probably, well, some staff are quite efficient at actually saying what should be done and what shouldn't be done, but some aren't. And maybe skilling up your staff to be able to do that. And time is taken by some people out there that is really above the pale. But I just want to make sure again that what I said about if it goes out with that large amount for Makatu, that it is fully explained why they are set out as opposed to the other amounts that we've got in there.
Thank you. Councillor Murray Bench.
Yes, sir. I want to go back to the consultation that we had last year, and it was really worthwhile. It took months and months and months. But the one thing that people commented on was they wanted community boards. And so then we decided to ignore them. But that was a very divided vote.
Point of order, we did not choose to ignore them.
It was very divided vote.
Fifth of Katikati haven't even paid a cent for 6 years.
And sir,
we tried to fix the problem.
Order, please.
Thank you, sir.
But could you stick to the
Well, I am.
recommendation, though?
I
please?
am. So we have got community boards, and I think that one of the strengths of this council is that we do have community boards. We're close to the people, and you cannot say that about our neighbours. They're not, and they don't want community boards. But one of the things that we know is that the closer you are to the people you represent, the more successful you are as a council. So I'm very much in favour of this option one and community board funding. I think Western Bay can be very proud of the fact that we've actually got this in our budget. We will learn to delegate more responsibilities to them with a bit of luck. And that's an issue for another day, but I'm very happy with the recommendation, sir.
Thank you. Councillor Granger.
Yeah, I think we need to be cognizant of the fact that this is a short-term issue because of the fact that we don't have areas of benefit for these new areas that we've created. And so we cannot rate as appropriately as we should because, you know, the issue with the new people that have been added to Makatu, the new people that have been added up the Kaimai and whatever. So we were dealt a hand from the representation review. We've got a response to it. It's not perfect, never be perfect, but because we can't rate properly with areas of benefit, and there is a subsidisation for Katikati Way Beach, I've mentioned that one before, but that's the way it is. And so we just have to do the best we can this time round and correct it when we can get the areas of benefit sorted out and rate each board on what they actually cost their community. So I'll support.
Thank you. Councillor Daly.
I didn't speak on the previous alteration that was proposed, but I'm very sympathetic, like everyone else, for that proposal. Our people in Makatu are special, and I'm sure that most councillors would like to support them as much as possible where possible. And I think a good example of that is, as Margaret said earlier, we allocated $80,000 of the Town Centre Development Fund to the Makatu Community Board for their discretionary use in Makatu at the expense of the 4 other town centres. So I think we are fulfilling our sympathetic concerns for Makatu's maybe feeling that they've been left out in the past. I think we've ended up with a good compromise solution. The people that will expand the area of benefit for Makatu are not impacted by this at this stage, and when they come in next time, that will reduce the Makatu Community Board amount as well. And I think to Miriam's point about the special extra contribution that the Community Board made, I believe they are still paying that extra contribution of about $100 per ratepayer per year. I don't think it has been discontinued. That's why it is $184. So it is a voluntary extra contribution that they make, and maybe that is, to Rodney's point, not appropriate that come out of the UAGC. But anyway, that's all. I'll support this one. Thank you.
Right, I think I have exhausted the speakers. Did you move it, Councillor Hen? Okay, did you need a right of reply? No. Yep, all right. I'm going to put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. And sorry, I didn't hear that. Division then, all right. Those who are against then raise their hands. Yes, we've got the 2, the rest were all in support. Okay, and the advantages, you have the table on page 234. You comfortable with those? Do you want to add, modify?
A disadvantage. Unfortunately, it's not addressing that multitude of rates we have across the district, and some are even forecasting that we go back to separate community board funds. So there's a disadvantage anyway. I've had my 2 cents through it. I pointed out before, 1/5 of the Katikati region hasn't even had a community board charged, despite being in it. No, that is a rating problem.
Point of
Point of
order.
order. There's no
Mr.
point
Speaker.
of order.
Point of order.
He's had us speaking. He
It's
doesn't
not on the
understand standing
agenda.
orders. He's been here how many years and he still doesn't follow standing orders.
Don't attack me personally.
please, could we both refrain? And no matter how much you think those points are valid, I think it's appropriate that we move on from where we are at this point. So I'm just trying to sort out where we are in terms of the advantages and disadvantages before we move to the next point, to the next issue. Mr. Mayor.
I think it's just to offer some help here. I don't think it's so much changing the advantages and disadvantages. I take Councillor Henry's point that it would be good to have some explanation that would
Yeah.
and I'm happy to do it either as part of my mayor's message or generally we can work something out. But yeah,
I think that's a valid point. If we could work some wording that we're not able to address the anomalies that have arisen because of this decision this year, but we do intend to next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have we gone? That's cool. Yeah.
I think so that the targeted rates could be introduced at a later date.
Well, that's essentially what we've said, that through the process next year, we're able to align this with the local government commission recommendation and target the funding there.
That's the answer.
Okay, well, it's been recorded, so I'm sure that our capable secretarial staff will sort that out for us. Thank you. All right, if we could move on to the next topic then, the delivery of parking services, and this paper is from pages 237 to 246. Councillor Granger.
Happy to move the recommendation, sir.
Do we have a seconder? Yeah. I don't know who was first. Well, say Councillor Murray Benj, but I probably should have asked first were there questions, but Councillor Granger was ahead of the game on me there. So it seems not. Right. Do we have any speakers? Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a more efficient and safer way to enforce our parking restrictions. So I think that I am in support of this. And I just want to make the point, I'm not sure it's in the paper, but from earlier discussions, I understand that the enforcement officer can still get out and monitor disabled parks and issue infringements manually if that be needed. So just wanted to highlight that. So it's not just the time restrictions, it's those other issues as well. And I wouldn't want those to be overlooked. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Henry.
Am I understanding that we're not replacing the vacancy, fulfilling the vacancy of the officer that's no longer there?
So through you, Mr. Chair, so we will need an officer in terms of operating the vehicle. So there will be a change in the requirements for that role and their responsibilities.
So there'll be one person driving around. Is that how it's?
Yeah, we haven't got to technology where the car is
So
self-driving yet, but we're getting there.
The other question was, how is it going to work? Obviously it's a person in a vehicle driving around, taking pictures. Is that how it works?
So there is a vehicle mounted camera and that uses a degree of AI in terms of taking photographs, and then there's an officer required to review that information in terms of the infringements.
So in terms of that, that means they've got to do 2 sweeps, don't they? If they record the time that they're there and then they come back again. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Sol.
Thank you, sir. Yes, totally support this. The one area which I expressed earlier in our workshops, etc., is that as long as we make sure we look after those with mobility car park issues that are legally able and have those actual cards available and displayed, not penalised in the form or the way that people that go into Tauranga are at this stage. And it is actually, frankly, I feel appalling that Tauranga has taken that angle and people come in, and whilst I guess if you don't know the law, you're still not exempt. But the fact is that people can arrive in Tauranga. This Western Bay area is very heavily visited by lots of people, some of whom have the use of those mobility car parks and are not aware that they have to register with the council. So I would hate, and I mean the word hate, to see that type of policy be used within our council district. That's all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Daly.
Yeah, I'm supportive of this. This has become an issue in Te Puke recently with the vacancy in the Te Puke parking warden space. I know we've been very well served in the past by very diligent parking wardens. I think the users of the parking spaces in the CBD were very conscious that if they overstayed their time that they would be getting a ticket, and also it was very useful for motor vehicle certification as well. However, there were significant health and safety concerns, and I was witness to that many times. In the time that I operated a retail shop in Te Puke for 7 years, and the attacks on the wardens even 20 years ago was, difficult to watch. And so I think this is a great solution, and people will be just as, become just as cognizant of the fact that there is a roving patroller, and they shouldn't overstay their welcome. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, Councillor Murray Benge.
I'm supportive of this recommendation, but the parking meters themselves have to be in sync with this system. In the Tauranga,
we don't have parking meters in Western Bay.
So how are you going to check the person who's parked for too long?
So in our town centres, we have predominantly it's 2 hour maximum parking. If you park over for 2 hours, over that 2 hour period, then you're subject to infringement. So as we've spoken about before, it does involve 2 rounds from our officers driving past. So first to record the time when the vehicle is parked there, and then to go back and determine that they've parked over 2 hours.
Just confirm, sir, that we're more intelligent than.
Okay.
She's who had a $70 fine.
All right, I'll let you ask the question.
How will mobility overstayers be monitored then? In that they have their card in the front?
Or is that also, are they entitled to be there?
I don't know. I don't know.
Because I think that was what came out of Councillor Sol's comments. Is that correct, Councillor Sol? Entitled to use, yes.
It's the check. Sorry, sir. Yes, it's the checking of those parks. It basically would require some physical, probably in a lot of cases, physically getting out of a vehicle and checking. Or, I mean, you can do it. There are other ways of doing it, but I would say very cumbersome. You start increasing our costs as opposed to somebody getting out of a door and going and having a look.
Thank you. All right. If we could have the explanation, please.
So probably there's 2 things there in terms of having a mobility card. So council doesn't process those. That happens independently. You get one of those provided, and that needs to be on display at all times when you're parking. So they are generally visible. And so the officer who will be driving past, firstly, it's whether or not there is a vehicle parked in the mobility car park. So obviously if that's clear, then there is no monitoring required in terms of compliance with display of the card. So we will try and ensure that from a logistical and efficiency perspective that some of it may be able to be monitored from the vehicle. So if it's very clearly displayed, and depending on the vehicle alignment as we're driving down the road and the type of car park that the mobility car park is, it might be visible from the vehicle. Otherwise, we will need to go and exit the vehicle to be able to check.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I'm going to put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. And so then looking at the advantages and disadvantages on page 242. Personally, I would say point 3 there under the advantages about increased revenue. I'm not particularly happy about that. I mean, that's not the main driver for this requirement. It's about ensuring everybody gets a turn. I certainly support and endorse number 4, the flexibility to expand beyond Karikari and Te Puke, and I highlight issues of some years ago that there were in Makatu, and nobody was prepared to come and visit and address the concerns about where some people were parking. So I think there's some good opportunities to deal with issues like that. So any other comments in regard to the advantages or disadvantages? Well, I'm suggesting, yeah, in point 3 being removed.
Maybe it could be changed to actual meet cost as opposed to increased revenue. Because I understand that it doesn't meet cost at the moment.
Correctly, yeah. So rather than increased revenue, an opportunity to meet costs. Because there is an opportunity that there will be increased revenue, but that's not the reason. What I'm getting at is that's not the driver for us to do this. Okay? Potentially, yeah. But if it gets the outcome of people giving others a turn, it's been successful. All right, it seems there's no other comment.
Need to ensure that our parking lots are shared by everybody, don't we? Shared fairly.
Everybody gets a turn.
Yes.
Or has the opportunity of a turn.
Fairness.
Councillor Henry.
Seeing you have given us an opportunity to have another comment, and regarding the revenue that it would collect, and yeah, I guess it could be a reputational risk if we are collecting a larger revenue than what one might expect. So I'd like to see that if we have that in our policy, that if we are doing that, we put it into something significant within the traffic management of particular areas in our rohi, because just to see it like that and have it sitting in an account somewhere, that the intention is that it goes back into the community and where it's been gathered. Well, the region, not the community. It's kind of hard to work out which one can have.
I'm starting to sound a little bit nervous now because I don't see that it's a good rationale just to reduce the costs. If the charges, if we're collecting more than the service is costing, because if people are offending, they deserve to pay the price, surely.
Yeah, I'm not saying to change it in here. I'm just saying in the a philosophy that we will put it back for the community. Well, I mean, people are disadvantaged if someone's in their parking space and they've got to go around again. So put it back into those where you've
we can fine tune this as the policy is implemented. I'm sure Alison's back to make some comments.
So there's probably two things in terms of, so we're required to meet our revenue and financing policy. And there are specific provisions for us to essentially ring fence under the Land Transport Act, where we take traffic and parking revenue. It has to go back into traffic activity. Yep.
Thank you for that. That's good clarification.
Can I add another advantage maybe?
Yes. We haven't quite moved on.
Using this technology, we're basically abandoning the collection of revenue from expired WAFs and regos, I understand, because you can't enforce or you can't check that with this technology. So potentially this is a a reputational improvement for council because we're often.
Well, we don't want to be encouraging warrantless cars to be driving around.
But it is, it has been one of the sources of health and safety concerns for the parking wardens who've been putting tickets on these vehicles.
Go and read the paper from the other day where a gentleman in Auckland was issuing warrant of fitnesses without doing any inspections. Do we want situations? We don't want to encourage bad behaviours. Alison.
Yes, as a point of clarification through Mr. Chair, the technology does provide for, it does provide for not for warrant of fitnesses, but it does for registration of vehicles. Yeah.
All right, thank you for that. I think we're ready to move on to the next item, which is the water plant upgrades, page 247 to 254. So Reece, you got some commentary for us before we begin?
Yeah, I believe Coralie's run through these. I'm standing in for her today, so I didn't wear my shirt, but still the same person. I'll take it as read and answer any questions. Thanks.
Thank you. So have we got any questions in regard to this? Councillor Murray-Bench.
What sort of gold plating are we going to have, expecting to have central government thrust upon us? Do you think this is the only requirement that will be made?
I wouldn't be able to just comment on gold plating, but in terms of standards, the Te Mata Arawa are currently doing a review of these standards, and we've been working with them quite closely. So we're waiting to see what comes from that, but there's always the potential that standards change in the future.
The quality of our water now?
The quality hasn't changed. It's the source is the same. It's around what treatment barriers you put in to manage risk that changes.
When I came here, it was E grade and Te Puke. So what are we up to now?
They don't use the grading system anymore. It's basically a compliance pass-fail type criteria. So the grading system has moved away.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Henry. Okay, we have no, sorry, Councillor.
Happy to move.
You're happy to move. Thank you. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Murray-Bench. Are there any speakers? Councillor Murray-Bench.
Has to be done, sir.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to put the recommendations. All those in favour, not in a fever. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Well, advantages and disadvantages. 250 and 252 are the page numbers. I think that's well set out in the first one. Agreed. All right. No issues. Thank you. So we're moving on then to Laura.
I just wanted to check the advantages lines. It says that it addresses all health and safety and flooding risks. I don't know if that word all is good to be saying that. Yeah.
That's a good point. The flooding is up to 150 a year. So if you get a larger event, then the treatment plant will be susceptible to flooding, particularly flood.
So do you want to just drop that word out or to put the word known?
We can put the 1 in 50 year event in. That specifically is what the design is for, so that clears that up.
I think that
I'm a wee
this,
bit
I don't want to
nervous.
get specific. I think just take out the word all and we're done.
Okay, thank you. Seems we're agreed on that. Thank you. All right, Waihi Beach wastewater. Do you wish to say anything in regard to this one, Reece?
No, happy to take questions.
All right, questions? Councillor Murray Benge.
All the money that's to be spent, do you think we'll have it under control by then?
Sorry, what do you mean by the question?
With all the money that's to be spent on the upgrade, will that then, how long will that satisfy the community? It's a 50-year requirement or
Yeah.
result?
Yeah, so
If I could interrupt while you're thinking, it's more about satisfying, I believe, the requirements of regulation and authority and et cetera.
yeah, currently there are wastewater standards that are out for consultation at the moment. If those change the goalposts, when they come into action, there may need to be another upgrade. So as part of the de-scoping that we've done to manage the underfunding of the project, we've de-scoped and removed the final treatment portion so that we can, once those standards become clear, we can reassess. I forget the date that they come into force.
There's no further questions. We have, sorry, you did indicate. Okay, so you're moving the recommendation. Seconded, Councillor Joyce. Any speakers? Councillor Sol.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, basically, I think we've covered it very quickly and succinctly. There's very little choice. The requirements to meet discharge and management systems are very clear and, as has been said, likely to increase in their levels. It's a step along the way. It's needed. Let's get on to it.
Thank you. Councillor Henry. Okay, if there's no other speakers, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. And the advantages?
They're all listed there, sir.
Page 258. Sorry, Councillor Murray Benge. You're happy with those? Give others time to just go through them, make sure they're comfortable. There's a good long list there, isn't there? All right. Seems we're satisfied. So we move to on to page 265 and structure plans. Sorry, so just to be clear, the recommendations are actually back on page 172, but these are the attachments that relate to those. So there's a bit of jumping to and fro, so we won't go too quickly. But so attachment 5 regarding the structure plans. When you're ready, I'll be looking for a mover and a seconder unless there was a question. Did you have a question? Yes, okay.
These come up every year. We're told we're reviewing them. We never actually look at them. We've never been briefed on them. We never had a chance. I mean, I realise the pipes are probably, that's designed by the engineers and it's really hard for lay people to have a say in it. But I'd like to know when we'll actually have a chance to properly look at these, because we haven't, certainly this triennium has just sort of gone through at this point in the process and swept past. with some of these things, like some of the roads in Katikati, I can't understand how the developer contributions versus the rates balance. You know, we just built a new road that was 50-50 with no existing users at all. So I just don't understand this, and I'm really not comfortable with the idea that I keep getting told we've reviewed these and we haven't actually reviewed them.
So I'm not sure who we can ask to respond who's qualified to answer this. Someone help me? All right, Rachel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll have a stab. What would be useful to know, Mr. Chair, through to Councillor Joyce, is exactly what you would like to understand as part of a structure plan review, because I suspect it means different things. It may mean different things around this table to what it does to any of our engineers reviewing the structure plans. Is it more the relationship between the infrastructure in a structure plan area and the financial contributions to rates assessment?
It's about there's two parts. One is prioritization of projects, right? How does a project get in and not get in? Because we've got a number of walkways and things in Katikati, for example, that don't seem particularly urgent, whereas there are some other needs that, you know, could be considered more urgent, and we never get a chance to ask the engineers about that. So it's both what's in and what's out, and then also secondary to that, yes, the funding split. These are issues that have not been addressed by elected members this training, as far as I can tell.
Yes.
Could I suggest, therefore, Mr. Chair, that perhaps becomes an item for a forthcoming Projects and Monitoring Committee workshop? I'm not actually sure what we've got left before the end of the triennium, but could we have a discussion about that, Councillor Joyce, and come back to you?
Okay, are there any other questions?
Oh,
yes, Councillor Daly.
So in view of Rachel's suggestion, does that mean we're going to let this lie on the table, or do you want to pass this now?
For clarification, Mr. Chair, what I was meaning is just perhaps a workshop around the structure planning process, what they are, how we determine what infrastructure is captured within a structure plan area or outside of structure plan areas, how the team then prioritise, how they quantify the cost of infrastructure, and then how they go through the process of determining timing and growth to rates split.
And so in regard to your question of we have to make a decision on this in terms of being able to adopt our annual plan. So for now. Councillor Granger.
Yeah, I cannot speak to things, walkways and things that might be happening in Katikati or Te Puke, but I'm fairly well over what's happening in Mokoroa, and these plans have been in front of us for years and years and years. What's going to happen and where it's going to happen, and what the engineers and our staff are doing is just saying, well, we don't need to do that one right now, but we really need to do this one because of that's where the growth's happening or whatever. It's driven by various things. So the order that they deliver things that have been signaled for a long time ahead is what we employ them to do, and so that we get the just-in-time work done for growth, and how it's split between growth and not in growth and all those sort of things. So well addressed in the formulas that the people behind me have come up with. So
okay, so thank you for that explanation. Councillor Thwaites.
Yeah, just that I totally agree with Councillor Granger. He's exactly right. And ironically, we passed the FinCo's models at the start of the meeting, which all this is the detail which drives those figures. So you can't start tinkering around here without, it's really through the long-term plan process these are put in place, and next year's projects are outlined, and then you're into an LTP round again. So I think.
Okay. Thank you for that. Those comments. Do we have a mover and a second to then, please? Councillor Thwaites, Councillor Sol. Are there any speakers? Councillor Sol.
Yes, sir. I think the matter basically, or the description of how this is comes about and so on has been well put by Councillor Granger. I know that we have issues in Waihi Beach and would like to see money spent in other areas or whatever, but the development is going ahead. It's been planned for, it's in there. Now's the time it happens. That's how it's structured. Let's get on with it.
Councillor Henry.
So in the past, when we have come to this point or a little bit earlier than that, we've been looking at what we can not cut, but work with to reduce our rate impact on our communities. And what I'm seeing in Katikati at the moment is a whole lot of work that's been done, and I'm really, really grateful, but it's happening all over the place. And so just thinking about what we've done in the past and what I've done, agreed to in the past, we have to be really mindful about moving things out, because things are obvious, things always need to be done, and moving them all out puts a big strain on communities and staff to be able to catch up with all those sorts of things. So I wouldn't like to see it continue to be a philosophy. We're not doing it now, but we're going to be looking at long-term plans again. Just a thought there.
Thank you. All right, since there's no more, so I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. So the next one is the capital and operational program, which is attachment 3 on pages 221 to 228. Do you wish to comment on that, Mr.
Perhaps I can just
Watson?
quickly speak to that. So basically what we have is in the long-term plan, you have your forecasting of various projects, whatever you, but we're fine-tuning that through the annual plan process, given there might be some reasonings that have come up, external reasons or influences that have meant that we can't proceed with a project as planned. So it's about shuffling those projects about and bringing forward projects that may have been consented, etc., and are ready to go, with shovel ready type of thing. So it's just about some fine tuning of that there to assure that just in time approach to things.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions? Councillor Granger? You're moving.
Happy to move it, sir, that we employ the staff to, we decide on these things in the long-term plan, but things change out there in the real world, and things have to be shuffled backwards and forwards, and that's what we employ staff to keep track of and do things at the right time. So I'm happy to move it.
Thank you for that. Do we have a seconder? Councillor. I was going to say Councillor Henry. Sorry, Councillor Murray Benge. Are there any speakers? Henry. Although I'll put the motion, the recommendation, all those in.
Speak first.
Sorry, I did ask that, I thought. So yes, go for it.
Signal. I think this is a really good program. And one of the things that bugs me is we used to have NZTA come to tell us. Now they go to the Regional Transport Committee. And I think while we've got Mr. Watson as our Chief Exec Engineer, you might like to correct that, sir. And however, because keeping us informed is what transportation is all about. Our roading networks are everything for the community, and for us to be better informed, I couldn't help but admire the work that's being done that we saw the other day with Transport Agency. It was brilliant, but I do believe they used to come and talk to us, and now they're going to the Regional Combined Committee. It's not good enough, sir.
Mr. Mayor.
Just correct that they have a seat on the Regional Transport Committee, but they do come here regularly, and other situations like last week where we went on a site visit to show us the TNL. So I think they keep us up to date regularly and in chambers when appropriate. So yeah.
If you could look into that, please, James, because Mr. Corkle said to me that they now report to the Regional Transport Committee.
Yeah, that they do. That's just another part of their job.
Okay. There are no other speakers then, so I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. We move down to attachments 1 and 2, financial statements, rating information, pages 181 onwards.
Happy to move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Murray Benge. Are there any speakers? Councillor Wickers.
As I sort of indicated by not even wanting to receive the report, I'm not prepared to put my name to the financials. I pointed out that within the report, and I'll go to the specifics now, under the financial overview 4, 5 and 7 are what I'll be referring to. So I've indicated that the reason for the increase to 8.92% is not electricity insurance and other services. It's that we approved another 1.5 million. That council acknowledges the financial pressures and that this has included reviewing budgets. The reason for reviewing budgets and all that non-essential is the same reason, the $14 million hole. And then that the financials are not materially different, even though the numbers are within the ballpark. We know that with the $14 million hole, they had to be materially different. So I can't put my name to this at this stage. So I look forward to the report from the CE in regard to the $14 million rating deficit, how it came about and how it is being remedied. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Granger.
Yes, sir. I just want to check for clarification before you vote on this. Is this the sample rates table included in this? Because I've got queries about that.
Yeah, well, do you want to raise your queries then?
Well, yes. If we go to that table item, in our workshop, I thought we'd decided that reducing the fixed water charge for residential properties was sending the wrong signal in the current climate, in that we are telling everybody that under this new regime, water charges are going to rise over time, and yet we're proposing in here to drop them. So I'm not quite, and I thought staff were going to go away and have a look at that and come back with an answer for us on that. So I would like some clarity on that, because I cannot see the rationale that we're increasing the volumetric charges, which is good because it encourages people to save water, but dropping the connection charge or the availability charge to me seems to be sending the wrong signal. So before we approve that, I'd like that to be discussed and we come to an agreement on that.
Yeah. Okay. Jonathan, do you wish to comment on that, given that, as Councillor Granger said, we did have a discussion about whether that could be changed or not?
Yes, so some work has been done on that. And if I could just pass to Matt, who's got the work sitting in front of him on that piece.
So through the chair, we did look at that after the workshop. So what we did, we removed the general rates component that was going to water and put that back into full targeted rates for water connections. So that did increase it since the workshop. The other side of it is it had a slight decrease due to moving to that increased volumetric charge. So the costs for the year are reflected in the connection and volumetric income.
What you're saying is you reduced it, but not as much.
All right, Councillor Henry.
I'm just a bit concerned about what Councillor Wickers is talking about. I'd like to ask through the chair if we can have a bit more clarity about what he's talking about he'd like to see in the resolutions that we're passing today, in terms of the way it's written now. Have you got some other alternative that you would like to see in there?
No, so just clarifying what I raised in the Audit, Risk and Finance Committee yesterday. requesting a report from the CE in regard to how the $14 million rating deficit came about and how it has been remedied by woven into this annual plan and the future annual plans.
Because it's not there today, you won't, that's why you don't want to approve that.
It's about trust, and I'm not at that. It hasn't reached the threshold that I can trust this for the reasons that I outlined. Even in the report, it's saying things that are not true.
Well,
Thank you.
I just read through it again, yeah. It's not talking about the process that we've gone through.
Please, if I could interrupt I want to go to the mayor and while he's speaking.
So I'll provide some comfort to Councillor Wickers on this. Those reasons around electricity and insurance, they're minor components that they didn't ring particularly true with me. So in the media release that's ready to go subsequent to this meeting in the next day or two, I do mention some of the other aspects. It's not the time to dissect the deficit, but it does cover some of the more important aspects like rebuilding reserves and so on. So that is in the media release, which will be coming out in due course.
Thank you. Before we go on, Adele, did you want to make comment, please?
Just through the chair. So we are preparing a further report that will come through to the council meeting on the 26th of June. That will respond to Councillor Wicker's questions from yesterday, as noted. The rating deficit that we had was put into the public arena when we adopted the annual report. It was $4.2 million. The information that you're talking to is a wider review across multiple years, and so doesn't pertain to the annual plan conversation as it stands at the moment per se. It's a component thereof. We are funding our loan funded rates deficit from last year over a 3-year period, which wasn't in the long-term plan, for example. So that was something that came through that's been addressed through the next 3 years. But a full report will be coming to the 26th of June meeting for the full transparency. As noted, that we build in those changes each and every year through updates and information as it comes to hand. Thank you.
Councillor Murray Benge.
Do we leave this issue until that meeting in June?
No, we cannot. We have to move this forward to be able to approve the annual plan in the statutory timeframe at the council meeting. Councillor Wickers has made it quite clear and has been given indication that clarification will come separately to that process.
So maybe I'm against 7, but I would approve 8.
Yeah, well,
if that makes
we're only moving 7 at this stage. Councillor Sol.
Thank you, sir. The mayor has mentioned that there is a press release basically already drafted. And I just wonder, because there is quite a bit of discomfort with this, just the same, and a wish to actually front this issue. And it's really quite important to our integrity as individuals, if it isn't as a council, that we do front this. And I just wonder whether it would be possible and whether in some ways it might allay a lot of the concerns if we were aware of the press release's content. It just might help ease the situation, sir.
Mr. Mayor, do you wish to comment on that before?
Conscious about spoilers, but anyway, the wording so it's an explanation as for why the 7.42 has gone to 8.92, and it talks about further financial prudence called for further adjustments, including rebuilding reserves, addressing lower than expected revenue in the regulatory space, necessary additional investment in water services, and settling weather-tight claims. So there's some of the key issues that raised it from the 7.5 to 8.9. It's not a line-by-line blow. That's not the purpose of the media release, but it's a little bit more explanation than electricity costs, which are a pretty minor issue.
Okay.
Is that the best we can do?
Well, look, I'm not going to draft a media release over, in committee, but it's, I felt those were important things to signal that there were more germane to the increase than electricity and insurance, which are there, but that they weren't the key drivers.
I'm sure the mayor is not going to push go the minute we close this meeting. If you want to talk to him over lunchtime about refinement that could be made in terms of that, but bear in mind that, as he said, the media release is not giving a blow-by-blow detailed account of how we got to here. It's really just trying to give a flavour, and perhaps, as he said, he's been able to redirect some of the conversation away from some of the relatively minor things to some of the more significant items that have contributed.
I think so. We must congratulate Miriam because we may never have known if she hadn't come on the job. So it's an issue of integrity, really.
Thank you. I want to move to Councillor Sol's been waiting to say something.
I am concerned that we're worried about a press release getting disclosed in a meeting when it's about this meeting and we're discussing this meeting on camera. It shouldn't be particularly an issue to be able to clarify that further. It is just part of this situation. Holding on to that just seems ridiculous.
Well, the press release has obviously been pre-prepared. I was not set in stone, I'm quite certain, until the outcome of this meeting.
Yeah, so it's dependent on the results of this meeting, but we had some indication of some of the outcomes of this meeting. So we can, obviously, if we decided against one of the issues and options, we would have amended it accordingly. But you don't just start on these things after the meeting and go, right, what should we do? It's a little bit more thought to it.
Okay, so I encourage you, if you really want to, bend the mayor's ear over lunch. We're dealing with the financial statements and rating information. Take me back. Was moved. Yep, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? 2. Yeah. Sorry, Councillor Murray Benj. You seconded it, so you now want to vote against it. Okay. Noted.
Open it for debate. And
no, we've had to vote. Yeah. Okay, so moving on to the final recommendation, number 8, that we recommend to council the adoption of the annual plan. I don't imagine there's any questions, but so do we have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Granger and Councillor Denyer, Mayor Denyer. Any speakers? Councillor Thwaites.
Thanks, Chair. This is the final opportunity, obviously, to speak about. Obviously, disappointed that the area I live in has been forced into a double-digit increase. That's half the story. The other half is that the urban centres got hammered last year with an incorrect stormwater charge, and so with the reduction of that this year, it softened the blow of the impact of what's going on, but so be it, that's the way it goes. Obviously, the goal is to work much forward to getting back to real basics and getting much closer to the level of inflation. We are so far away from it now at 3 times this year's increase, being 3 times the rate of inflation that's published. Shows a lot of work to do in the coming year, but I accept that this adjustment has to be made, but I'm signalling we have to go harder and cut our cloth to live within the level of inflation that households are facing. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wickers.
Yeah, I'll support the motion. I've expressed my concerns around the financials, but Council has done a fantastic job putting a plan together, and we've got to keep moving forward. So I support it.
Thank you. Councillor Murray Benge.
Sir, I really wish that we would record how grateful we are to Miriam Terrace and basically to the mayor for actually appointing her with her financial experience, and to highlight where we had serious problems, and that 1.5% increase in rates that we are enduring as a result of that, I think is most unfortunate. One of the things, though, that I think there's a move on out in the community that rates have no increase, and that's pretty impossible. I think we need to be able to get our rate increases to no more than the rate of inflation. And coming out of COVID, I think most local governments have had a predicament that's been really quite serious, and adjusting to the new world order has been one of our challenges. So I'm supportive of the annual plan. I do believe that the community is looking for good explanations, and so, sir, I'm supporting it.
Thank you.
But I would like to have her contribution acknowledged.
Thank you. Noted. We have no other speakers then. I'll put the recommend, oh, sorry. Councillor Sol.
Thank you,
Sorry.
sir. Yeah, I actually endorsed that about our acting, is it CEO or et cetera. Really handy to have somebody doing that job that's been here before and is working through with all the experience and knowledge she has. The other area I do say, which is something that I've always, well, since we last had this situation with the rates last year in Waihi Beach, and how the commercial and industrial area are lumped together, of course, throughout the whole district, that I at least see some sort of relief in some ways for the commercial properties in Waihi Beach. I look forward to seeing a rates review in the future, or rate policy review, should I say, and how we go about perhaps separating commercial and industrial areas so that we can perhaps shape it more fairly and evenly across the types of business and operations. So it's, in the end, I guess, probably better than what I'd hoped for, in all fairness, sir, and I will be supporting.
Thank you. All right. Looks like we've exhausted the speakers. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. There being no information for receipt, I will declare the meeting closed. Thank you all for your participation.